Good evening from the UK and welcome to Inception podcast special. I have an amazing guest this evening who's going to share his journey because I'm already smiling. Whenever I'm in this gentleman's energy, I just feel good. So you know what's coming. So I'd like to introduce to the special, the wonderful Preston Dennett. Welcome.
Hi, Gloria.
We meet
Thank
again.
you.
Yes. Are you ready? Are you ready?
I think so.
You think so?
Yes.
Right.
I've had my morning coffee.
Yeah.
It's a cool morning.
What time is it there? What time is it?
It's 10 a.m.
Oh, okay. And as I said, our clocks went back, didn't they, Sunday? It just totally phased me and I forgot. And then I was like, oh my God, it's a different time. But you catch up soon, don't you? When do your clocks go back?
Yeah, next week.
Okay.
I wish we just pick a time and stick with it.
Oh, do you know what? It's doing it's just anyway, we've sorted today out. And thank you so you delayed coming on, didn't you? Yes, you delayed. Right, here we go. So, Preston, where did your spiritual journey begin? Where did it all start for you? And how did you get here?
I've always been kind of I'll say mystical guy. Mm-hmm. Even as a little boy, I would climb up to the tops of the pine trees and feel the wind. My parents were like, well, what are you doing up there? Because pine trees are easy to climb. And we had a bunch around our house that went soaring high, over 100 feet.
You went to the top?
Yeah.
Oh, what a child you were.
I had 3 big brothers, so boy, if my mom saw the things we did, she would probably...
A bit of a daredevil. So you knew at that age you were like fearless. Would you say that?
Well, more so than I am now, that's for sure.
Yeah. Age kicks in. Yeah, do go on.
So yeah, I mean, I was always out there tromping through the hills and feeling the wind, and but as I grew up, the paranormal was not a subject in our house growing up. We were, I thought, very, analytical, left brain, science.
Yeah.
I was very much into science and materialism and knowledge and trying to figure stuff out. So I didn't believe in the paranormal.
No.
Not for a second. And certainly not UFOs or life after death. Mm-hmm. But I did have a weird experience at age 9, which I don't often talk about, but I will certainly share it with you.
Thank you.
Because it was really cool. I was watching a game show with my big sister, 1 year older than me. Mm-hmm. 1 year and 4 days. We sort of grew up like twins.
Yeah.
But we were just alone in the living room watching this game show called Treasure Hunt. Mm-hmm. And we turned it on and it had just started. Mm-hmm. And darned if I didn't know everything that was going to happen. I mean, I seriously knew everything. Wow. I'm like, that person in the audience, they're going to pick her to play. And my sister's like, how do you know that? I'm like, I don't know. And sure enough, they picked her. And we laughed. And they had like 3 canisters and one had the flowers in them. I'm like, it's the one on the left. And of course it was. And we laughed again. And the game was called Treasure Hunt. There was like, 50, 70 boxes on the stage. And one of them held the check for like 50 grand. And I don't remember the number, but I'm like, it's number, 67 or whatever it was. It was a high number. I remember that. And my sister's looking at me like, you're crazy. I'm like, no, seriously, it's in that box. I know it.
Yeah.
And the guest did not pick the right box, but I said, no, it's in 67. And we rolled on the ground laughing because I got it right.
Did you grow up and go on that show? Because you would have won.
I should have, huh?
I mean, why don't we have these sort of gifts now? They're all when we're children. And can you imagine? I'd be straight on the lottery, love. Do you know what I mean? It would be like, but yeah, okay, wow. Did you not question that, or did you just forget all about it once you'd experienced doing that amazing magic?
Yeah, it was just a little fun incident in my childhood, which I never really thought about until
Wow.
other weird stuff started to happen
Okay.
much, fairly later in life.
When
The
did the
sec
rest of the weird stuff come?
um, there was really nothing until I had a very tragic experience, actually, with my mom passing away at age 49
Mm-hmm.
of a major heart attack. So that was devastating. I was 19 years old. And boy, that was tough. I mean, it really was a huge, huge hit for our family,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. And it was just maybe a month later, we were having the service for her at a friend's house. And my dad's driving up, and I see my mom in the front seat of the car.
Wow.
And I'm looking at her thinking, well, this cannot possibly be. And it was her. It was her. And she just sat there very, she had great posture, very elegant. She was one of those people who had a natural grace about her. And right as soon as she got close, about 5 feet away from me, she just sort of pixelated away and disappeared. And I thought, wow, I must really be sad. I must really have lost my marbles.
Wow. What? I'm just thinking, I mean, obviously coming from my past, it was normal and I never thought that, but I'm just, reevaluating. Yeah, for someone who'd never experienced a loved one that's what we call crossed over into the other timeline, you must have thought you'd lost your marbles. Absolutely. Or you were such in grief that wow, what a change.
Yeah.
What a change. Your consciousness must have shifted at that point with that incident. It must have shifted.
Maybe a little. I certainly questioned it. I assumed I was hallucinating. I've never taken hallucinogenics, by the way, but I knew what a hallucination was.
Yeah.
In theory.
Did you find it a comfort seeing her? Curiously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did. It was strangely like, wow. There was a wow factor there. There was like a special feeling to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was just weird enough where I'm like, I'm not telling anybody this. I am not going to tell anybody.
No.
Because there were other people there and no one was reacting.
No.
And I'm like, all right. And it was right after that. So she died in 84, and it was around 85 and 86 that I started to have these dreams where she would come into my room and I would sit up in bed, quite sure that I was awake. And I'd be like, my mind would be blown because there's my mom standing there. I'm like, Mom, you're dead. What's going on? It's great to see you. And she'd smile at me and she wouldn't say any words, but she would give me this really strong impression. Like, I'm fine. Don't cry. Everything's fine. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Because I was not okay. I was going to bed crying. I was waking up crying.
Yeah.
For a year.
Oh, bless you.
Because I was really, I was 19, but I was a young 19 and we were a very close-knit family with 6 kids.
Yeah.
We were just close-knit in a tiny little, trailer of a house.
Yeah.
I shared a room with all the way up to age 19.
There you go. That's how close you were. So you were a very sensitive being then. Even as a young man, you obviously you're a very sensitive being, which is another trait that one would identify when one goes back looking at experiences. So how many days did Mum come to visit you?
She came, I would say, some 20 to 40 times over a period of 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was almost always the same. She'd walk in, I'd wake up, and I'd be like, oh my God, what is going on? And then I would wake up for real.
Yeah.
Which was very disorienting. I'm like, what just happened? I thought I was awake. Now I'm really awake. Yeah. And I knew it was her. I mean, I knew it because there's a quality of a person's presence.
Absolutely.
That is, undeniable. And yet I knew it couldn't be her because there's no such thing as life after death. Shut up. It's just not real. It can't be real.
Oh, I love it. Go on. Yeah.
So I was getting pulled in 2 directions there, and I could not reconcile it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it was her, but I knew there was no such thing as life after death.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm like, well, something's not adding up here. I'm going to have to figure this out. So I started writing down my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, let's check out some books on dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pretty disappointed with the books I found and dream theory in general,
Mm-hmm.
which was not right. Intuitively, I could just tell, like, dream symbolism, well, this is not helping me.
No, I agree with you. Yes.
And I eventually did find a few books which sort of like, yeah, your deceased loved ones can visit you in the dream state.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, that makes more sense than anything else I'm reading here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hit on lucid dreaming. I'm like, wow, perhaps that's what's going on here. Because I wasn't aware that I was dreaming, but I was awake. So I would probably term it more as a pre-lucid dream.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to find that fine line, isn't it? I mean, I lucid dream in the sleep state of consciousness. And the other day, I was in a dream within a dream within a dream. That really threw me. But you think, yeah, I'm awake, and boom, wake up. And then, no, I need to. And then I went again. I went 3 times, actually. So it's disorientating at first to get used to. You really are awake in the dream state of consciousness.
Yeah, and right before my mom died, she's like, have you ever read Carlos Castaneda? I'm like, no, who's he? She's like, oh, you have a treat in store.
Wow.
So I'm like, well, let's pick up Carlos Castaneda, which was, of course, a very spiritual book. And he talked about lucid dreaming in it. So that started to really open me up. But really what happened for me was reading Robert Monroe's books. Robert Monroe is, of course, all about out of body and astral travel.
Yeah.
And my favorite author on the subject, though I now have pretty much every book I can find. And he gave exercises on how to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, I'm pretty sure he's telling the truth about his experiences. These were very sincere books, very believable. But he's like, you can do it yourself. I'm like, oh, that sounds a little scary, honestly. But I was intrigued. I'm like, this is something anyone can do. Why not try it?
Yeah.
Why not? And so I did. And the exercises, are pretty simple and brief. They're just relaxation and meditation exercises, visualizations, affirmations. And I looked back, and how long did it take me? It was about 1 to 2 months of doing these exercises. But immediately I started having really strong pre-lucid dreams. I remember one was so bizarre. I woke up and I had fallen asleep on the kitchen floor with my head stuck in the cabinet. And I'm like, oh, and I pulled myself to a standing position. I'm like, how in the heck did I fall asleep on the kitchen floor? And I was so tired, and I stumbled into my room and I crawled into bed, and then I woke up. I'm like, oh, that's almost lucid. I was almost there. And finally it happened. I was depressed. It was the middle of the day and I'm just moping around. And went into my room. Finally, I had my own room, and laid down on my stomach. And suddenly I felt this immense sort of pressure on my body and a really strong vibration. And it got to the point where I thought I was being electrocuted. And I assumed that, I really did.
Yes.
I'm like, what is happening? Did I stick my finger in the light socket? Because I have a light socket next to my bed. And I'm like, my finger must be inside it. And I was just going, and suddenly I popped right out of my body. Whoosh. There was an audible pop, and whoosh, I went flying out of my room, across the hallway and into the bathroom. And I stood up in front of the mirror, and I grabbed the sink, and I looked in the mirror, and there was nobody there.
Wow. Stop there. Just stop there. Do you have a conscious memory of what was going on in your so-called mind or being when you looked in the mirror and there was no one there?
Yes, I knew exactly what was happening. And I thought to myself, I am doing it. I'm out of body right now and I'm doing it. I'm actually doing this.
Wow.
And I knew right then and there was life after death. I knew
It's
then
a
and
knowing,
there.
isn't it? It's not a belief. It's not a truth. It's just a knowing, isn't it? When that happens, a knowing. Yeah.
Yep. That you can exist beyond the body.
And
Because,
you are not the body, because as you looked in the mirror, there was no body there, but you was observing you there, so to speak. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. I would later look in the mirror and see myself as in my out of body state, but then I didn't. So it's all about vibrational levels.
Yes. Do go on. Oh my gosh.
So I was overcome with absolute joy, ecstasy, excitement, disbelief, awestruck. And I'm holding onto the counter, the sink there, and I got pulled back into the hallway, and I'm floating horizontally back into my room. And I'm like, wow. And I looked, and there was a man in my room. Could have been a woman. I couldn't really make them out. It was somewhat blurry.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see that they were short, maybe 5 feet, even 4 foot and a half. But human looking, I would say. I couldn't tell. It was a silhouette.
Yeah.
It was blurry. And, when I couldn't see that well, all the colors were swirling around me and everything was like, and I got put over my body horizontally and I sunk back into it very slowly. And I kind of filled my body back up. It was a very strange feeling, like, pouring water into your body.
Wow.
And I woke up and opened my eyes. And I have to tell you, I was no longer depressed.
You'd think not.
I was absolutely like, oh my God. Holy
shit. Holy shit.
Yes, holy shit.
Yeah.
I'll just say it. I'm not usually a big swearer, but
yeah, that's a holy shit moment. Yes.
It really was. And I thought, okay, I am going to try that again. And I doubled down and I started having them every weekend because that's when I could sleep late. I worked, I was going to college. Mm-hmm. I was a very busy man. Mm-hmm. And would always sleep late on Saturdays and Sundays. Mm-hmm. And that's when it would usually happen. And the next one was the same exact thing, right into the bathroom and back. Mm-hmm. The third one was terrifying. Oh my God, it was scary.
What happened?
Oh, I still get chills when I think about it. It almost brings tears to my eyes because it was just so much. I woke up in the middle of the night and it was pitch black. Mm-hmm. And I was very disoriented and had, what do you call it, vertigo. I was very dizzy. Yeah. Which is a sign that you're out of body. And I'm trying to orient myself. And I'm finally like shaking my head. I'm like, okay, I'm awake. And I'm standing next to my bed. And boy, it's dark out, and I'm looking around. And then I looked down in bed and I couldn't see my body, but I could see that I was in bed under the covers. Yeah. And I could see the shape of my body. And I'm looking down and I'm like, oh my God, I'm dead. I've died. I am now dead.
I know that feeling. Yeah, come on. Yeah.
And I was really upset. And I felt this cold dread, this absolute terror that swept over me. Like, I have just died. My life is over. Yeah. And I wasn't even sad. I was scared. Yeah. And I dived back into my body the instant I realized this, because I'm like, no, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And instantly filled up my body, like that weird feeling I described, and wiggled back in, like putting on a pair of clothes or something. Yeah. And woke up and I'm like, what just happened? Something happened. What just happened? And then I remembered I almost lost it.
Yeah.
That made me realize
that one was not intentional, was it? That one was not you planning, going into that space, laying in on a Saturday morning, or you knew you could lay in. That one was spontaneous in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and that started to happen quite a bit. a lot of my early OBEs where I just wake up out of body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because consciously leaving your body while you're awake is a little bit, for me, more difficult and certainly more, scary.
Me, I don't know if it's the same thing. I was having a coffee sitting in a graveyard, as you do, because I love graveyards. And anyway, I was just in this space, and so it's a very similar experience. And these small children were walking past the old Victorian cobbles to go somewhere else. It was like play school children. They were going somewhere. So I could just, all of a sudden, I toned into the feet. And I just got in the beat of them walking. And then an echo, I could hear them talking. And then I heard one little boy, quite a little shit actually he was, and he had this other little girl, must have been about 4. And he turned around and said, see them graves, they're dead people. As soon as he said that, vroom, I was sitting there, I'm not dead. And then my consciousness kicked in. I went, fuck, I'm dead. And I really believed. And I sat here, and I didn't get scared, but I was going, okay, the best thing to do, because I'm a medium and I'm a rescue medium, so I had it all planned. Where was I last before I died? I'm so understand what you said. I really believed, and I was trying to check where I was before I died, and then I come back. So I totally understand that experience. You have to experience it to really resonate with it. It is like, wow, I was dead. And then afterwards you go, what was that about?
Yeah, there's no explaining what it's like to be out of body anyone.
No, you just got to go through it. So go on. I knew this was going to be an exciting conversation. Do go on.
Yeah, so I will put an aside here, which is absolutely connected, because literally the same exact time this was going on, I found out UFOs were real.
Wow.
And it was an enormous shock. I cannot tell you what a shock this was to me.
How did that happen?
This was November 1986. Mm-hmm. And this was literally when I started going out of body by, the same exact time, which I don't think is a coincidence. No. So I was watching the news, November 17th, 1986, the evening. Tom Brokaw, or Dan Rather, one of these main news guys, comes on the evening news. Whole family's sitting there, most of us, and talks about a sighting over Alaska, which is now a very well-known sighting, about this pilot who had been followed by a UFO in a Japanese commercial airliner. The whole crew saw it, was on radar. Ground witnesses, ground radar. It's a big, big case. On the news, it was a pure joke. Mm-hmm. The whole news, episode of this sighting was maybe 1 minute. They kind of joked about the pilot, laughed nervously. Any of you seen a UFO? No, ha ha ha. Yeah. And moved on.
Yeah.
And I thought, that poor pilot, what an idiot.
Yeah.
Why did he say that? Because I showed his picture. I'm like, he's probably going to lose his license. Mm-hmm. He did, actually. He was grounded. Mm-hmm. So I thought, gosh, why would he do that? He's a pilot. Mm-hmm. And well, my brother said he saw a UFO, and it was some 5-7 years earlier. He came running into the house. I saw a UFO. We were all sitting at the table, and we looked at him and like, right, Mark. And I'm like, shut. I rolled my eyes and I just turned away. And I could see he was disappointed, but he didn't push the issue. No. So I'm like, Marco, did you hear about this pilot? And he's like, no. He's like, yeah, this pilot said he saw a UFO. He's like, I saw one. I'm like, yeah, I remember. What did you see? And he described this incredible sighting. Mm-hmm. In brief, he was with his 2 friends and chased a UFO literally about 2 blocks from where I'm at right now, mm-hmm. down the street with other cars chasing it. It was treetop level, a metallic dome-shaped object with colored lights, perfectly silent for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I can't believe that I didn't, listen to you.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's like, well, yeah, you didn't believe me. I'm like, no, I didn't. You don't believe me? Go ask Phil. Go ask Greg. You know, they were with me. Those were his friends.
Yeah.
And I did. I asked them, and
You
they're like,
did.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they described the same thing, and they were so happy to, you know, like have someone listen to them, because
Yeah.
you know, that was in the late 80s, or this was mid 80s. People were not as open to this subject. The subject really exploded in the late 1980s here in the US, certainly. And that's when I started asking others. Stupid me. Started, you know, asked all my brothers and sisters. No, you're crazy. And finally, my sister-in-law was like, yeah, I saw one. My two friends were there. It was this, you know, these three lights and darting around. I'm like, wow. She's like, you don't believe me? Talk to Adlai. He was there. You know Adlai. I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, wow. Had friends who had sightings. One had missing time. I brought it up at work. Talked to this lady I'd worked with, you know, for some time. And she's like, yeah, me and my whole family watched this object darting around. Her daughter ended up being abducted by Grays. And in walks Dorothy. She's like, oh yeah, one followed us home from the library. Me and my mom and my best friend. And it's so weird because we left the library at 9 o'clock. And when we got home, it was like 10:15.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened at the time. And I'm like,
you must have been, with all of these verifications, you sort of, it's a family affair anyway, then it's a friend affair, and then it's a community affair for you. So your consciousness must have been shifting, you know, as it, I mean, I'm looking at, do you think as soon as you stopped saying it wasn't true and you were more open, and I agree, maybe the out-of-body experiences allowed you to be more open to the fact that it all just, you changed your realities, it just kept coming in, one after the other.
I cried. I was not a happy camper. I felt lied to. I was I mean, I don't even know how to describe this.
It didn't fit into your paradigm, did it? It just didn't fit into your reality, but it had to fit in.
It's very much like being uprooted and kicked in the head and thrown on the ground and stripped naked. And I mean, it was like,
and your parents aren't your parents. This is not you. You're someone, and it's just the whole thing's deconstructed.
Yeah. Not only was my family keeping secrets, society was lying to me. There was a government cover-up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey guys, I'm going out of body. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm having out-of-body experiences. They're like, Preston, what's wrong? I'm like, no, seriously, I am. And UFOs are real.
Yeah.
And most of my brothers and sisters, except Mark, are like, Preston, you've lost your mind.
Yes.
I'm like, no, look, read this book. You know, it's real. And they're like, shut up.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And so I was a little bit on my own with all of this. And my belief system was absolutely shattered.
Yeah.
And I tried to rebuild it, but I was never able to.
No.
So my belief, I had lost the ability to believe anything. I became profoundly skeptical, oddly. Yes. And I just like, all right, from this point on, it's no beliefs.
Yeah.
It hurt too much to have them stripped away.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
I'm only going to know what I know.
Yeah.
I am what I am. I know what I know. And that's going to have to be enough.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of how I started to slowly build up a new worldview, was based on knowledge, not on faith, not on belief, not on other people's ideas. You know, if someone wrote a book saying, you know, this is real, I'm like, sure it is. I'm going to find out for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
I think it's a case, we can get guidance and pointers from others and books or gurus. It's a guiding point, like on maps, you know, the points are there or the coordinates are there. However, it has to be an inward thing, doesn't it, to find it, that it is your truth, because that's someone else's truth that's being purported out. Do you find that resonates with you? Because I know for me, I said, I don't know what's true or false anymore. I'm not going to believe anything. That's just me. what is the truth? Because everything I thought was true wasn't true.
Yeah, which is why I hate people, because sometimes I'm described as UFO believer. I'm like, no, I don't believe in UFOs.
No.
I don't. I know. I'm a UFO knower.
Yeah, that's a good statement. I'm a UFO knower. Maybe we should change the language again, Preston, because it is about the knowing. It is not a belief. It's a knowing that comes through. Anyway, you go on. What's the next phase?
Hearing all my, friends and family and coworkers saying, I saw the UFOs. I'm like,
yes.
I'm pretty sure they did, but I could not wrap my head around it. I'm like, I'm going to have to see one for myself. This is ridiculous, because I cannot go on like this.
No.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
And I will say at this time, I started having dreams which came true too. So that was another level to this. Because I was, mind you, very scientifically minded. I was going to be a science fiction writer.
Yeah.
So I was educating myself. I was going through college, taking all the science classes.
Yeah.
Astronomy, sociology, anthropology, philosophy, biology, science, which I still loved, and I still do. And it's helped me immensely to be grounded.
Yeah.
But then I started having dreams which came true. I remember I dreamt that my friend was on the roof, fixing the roof. I'm like, that's weird. And one day she invited me up to her house, and there she was on the roof fixing it. I'm like, whoa! Oh my God!
It seems to be part and parcel of the unpacking of the being. I was similar. I remember one I got was the weirdest, and it was just so real. And I can't name the people, but I saw, I went to a certain business premises and I watched as there was drug deals going on, and where it was hidden and where it was, and all that went on, and that the police were coming and they would be arrested. I saw that in advance. And I remember telling one person in confidence who was aware of the others, and he said, nah. Anyway, it was like a couple of days later, there was a drug raid and it went exactly down. And I went, oh, wow. Do you know what I mean? You could, I suppose, if you were nefarious or you have a different, I don't know what the word is, if you were a lower vibrational being, you could use that skill set to your benefit as an alarm to warn ahead. But yes, it is very, again, it's disorientating, I can't talk today, to the actual reality you're in, to have, they're not just precognition dreams. If you say it like that, you can't get it. It shifts you when you realize that you can actually, or you actually are this consciousness that can perceive in other timelines or other areas.
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you? It's another shaker for the being. God.
Yeah. Here's how I looked at it, because I was having lucid dreams at this point, out of body stuff, and when you suddenly wake up and you're out of body, everything's like sparkles. And becomes super vivid, and it's like, oh my gosh! And you wake up, it's like a profound enlightenment. You're like, suddenly, wow, you are in a different world.
Yeah.
And then I would have I remember, I think it was the second one, I had this dream where there were little animals in cages.
Yeah.
And I love animals. I'm all about animals. And seeing animals in cages is heartbreaking, of course.
Sad.
And one day I was, at work, in the office, and I went out for lunch at this little diner where I always go, and I ate quickly. I got my service done all fast. I had an extra half hour. I'm like, well, let's take a little walk. So I'm walking down the sidewalk, which I had never done in this area, and I came upon a pet store, and I can't go into pet stores because it's too sad for me. And I just looked in the window, and there was my dream. And suddenly I just walked into a dream, and I had the same exact feeling I get when I'm out of body and waking up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now the world, it had come full circle, because you go out of body and you're in the dream world, which is real.
Yeah.
And now I'm walking in the real world,
Yeah.
and it becomes the dream world.
Yeah.
And it's real.
It's real. And that's what I was saying to you pre-recording. Timelines merging, the timelines. Yeah, I resonate with, yes, I understand that. That's mind-blowing. Come on, that's really, you've got to be really shook up with that one.
Yeah, and those precognitive dreams came fast and furious ever since then, and still do. And it's wild. I remember they're connected to the whole out-of-body thing, because when you're out of body, time is different.
Yeah.
You can visit the past, you can visit the future.
Yeah.
And
any timeline you want, any
yeah.
visit any dimension, any timeline.
It's amazing.
That's your beingness. It can do that. Yeah.
I was like either out of body or in a dream. I wasn't sure, but there was a girl at work, and she was in the bathroom. And I found myself in the bathroom, and she's taking a shower, and I'm like, oh my God, don't look, because I'm not.
Oh, Preston, wow.
That's rude. And, I am not spying on people.
No.
On purpose. I'm not going to do that.
It reminds me when way back when I was unintentionally remote viewing, I'd be somewhere. What am I doing here? And and then what am I doing? It wasn't like when I did my workshops where your intention. These were unintentional. So are you saying when this happened, I'm going in the bathroom, it was obviously unintentional? We need to state that.
Yeah.
You didn't intend to go in there, because again, nefarious beings that is aware of what they can do that. So that's why I use the blocking skill for that one. But do go on. I'm fascinated.
When you're a beginner, your emotions kind of rule. You pop out of body. It's called the desire body.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. When I'd first pop out of body, I would become overcome with joy and excitement, and I get pulled right back in. My excitement was of such a level that I could not control myself.
No.
I'd pop out of body. I'd be like, yeah, swung right back in.
Superman, I'm off. Yeah.
For a year, I'm not kidding, a year, my out-of-body experiences did not exceed 10 seconds.
Bless you.
So finally I popped out of body. I'm like, okay, relax. And that second year, I extended it to about a minute.
Oh, wow.
Where I could, walk through walls and explore the inside of the house. And fly up over the house and just look and soak in those beautiful astral energies. Wow. Oh, is it beautiful when you're out of body? It's a kind of peace that you cannot achieve in this plane. And so
what happened next after that period?
So after about a year or two, I started to extend it to the point where okay, I learned how to move, because in the beginning I'm sitting there flapping my arms to go upwards, and I'm like, I can't get through the wall. And I'd bounce against the wall, or I'd get stuck in the wall, and I couldn't see. I'd pop out, and I'm like, I'm completely blind, and I'd open an eye, and I could see out of one eye, or I'd open my eyes, and I'd get pulled back into my body. It was very much trial and error for a year or two. Finally, I'm like, okay, I've got it down. I can do this regularly. And by then I had every book. And they're like, well, this person, went to the moon. This person rescued a lost soul. Yes. This person went to the Akashic Library.
Yeah.
This person went to a healing temple, a learning temple. This person saw their spirit guides.
Yeah.
This person saw Jesus. This person went to the light.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, so I made a list. I'm like, I am going to
a bucket list.
Exactly.
Wow.
And my real bucket list was, the whole purpose was, I want to see my mom.
Oh, bless you.
I want to see my mom. I want to know how she's doing.
Yeah.
I knew how I was doing.
Yeah.
I was doing much better going through all this. That was the time of my life. I had discovered that there's another world. Yeah. My poor family, they put up with me, actually. And I ended up teaching, Marco, at least, how to go out of body.
Wow.
And my friend, Roger. And I taught, I've taught others how to do it. But most of them are like, no.
It is a scary notion, because there is the ego, the identity has a concept. If you leave your body, you're dead. That's it. And it's a fear that some are not ready yet, even though every time their physical body goes to sleep at night, they're out of body. It's illogical, but no one perceives it that way. So I can understand why people say no. I've got to ask the question, Preston, did you see your mum after that again?
I sure did. Oh boy, did I ever. There were a few times I'd pop out of body and she was there. And I'm like, oh my God. And we'd sit down on the couch and talk. I usually didn't remember. Mm-hmm. Or I'd run up to her and I'd hug her. That's what usually happened. And then it would end because it was just so emotional. Oh. And one time I ran up and hugged her and she quickly grabbed me and threw me up into the air like I was a little boy. I'm like, oh, wow. Oh. So that was all kinds of fun. But often I'd pop out of body and be like, Mom. Yeah. And she wouldn't come. I'm like, this is very frustrating. And I was still at the stage where I'd pop out of body and get very emotional. Yeah. And this is something any beginner will understand. Mm-hmm. You have to deal with a flood of emotions. Mm-hmm. Anything you've suppressed, have not dealt with emotionally, will come roaring back at you. Yeah. And I'm a fairly emotional person by nature, but depending. I mean, I'm also really level-headed and analytical, and but I'm also unfiltered too. Sort of, I can turn it on and off. Yeah. But I would pop out of body, and I'd sometimes just rage with anger. Ooh, was I angry? And I'm not an angry person. I have a long fuse because my dad, was somewhat had a temper. Yeah. Early on, at least. And I would just rage, and I'd find myself in grocery stores, oddly, which is a thing, by the way. This turns up in a number of books. Beginners find themselves in grocery stores. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, that's happening to me. And I would just go destroying things. These are like projections, right? Not actual. Yeah. I don't know. It's very confusing in the beginning. It's very dreamlike. Mm-hmm. So I had to deal with that. I'd also had to deal with gluttony, one of the deadly sins, and I would create feasts of food. I have some favorite foods. I love chicken nuggets, brownies, sour cream and onion potato chips, and Neapolitan ice cream. And I would just gorge myself, and it was so cool because it tastes real. Yeah, and those chips are crunchy, but it would disappear right around here. Yeah, and it was not quite satisfying. But it was really so much fun. I'm like, wow, if people knew what you could do. Yeah. And then, of course, there was the problem with lust. Yeah. And I don't want to get too into it because it's somewhat embarrassing.
You don't have to go that far down the rabbit hole.
But I will say that it was fun. Oh my God, did I have fun? Robert Monroe talks about this. He in a lot of the out-of-body experiences, Patricia Garfield. And you get overcome with these erotic feelings. Yeah, yeah. And there's a connection there. Priests in ancient times used to withhold sex. Yeah. Because it gives you the energy to do the out-of-body travel. Yeah. There's a weird connection there. Yeah, yeah. And Robert Monroe would always just, he'd come upon some weird sex scene, and he'd be like, all right, I'm just going to ignore it, and move on. I could not ignore it. I'm like, are you kidding? This is way too much fun. Let's do this.
I haven't got this in the other reality, so I'm going. Yeah, I hear you.
So yeah, I had fun with it. And that went on for a while. And finally, I'm like, this is, I started to find other things to do, which are far more fun. Mm-hmm. So I got through that. So those were three areas that I had a little bit of issues with before I started, creating my bucket list and doing things. And so, yeah, the first one was, I want to see my mom. So finally, I pop out of my body and I run into my living room. I'm like, okay, I'm in my bedroom. Like, what did I want to do? What did I want to do? I wanted to see my mom. And I go rushing out into the living room, and there's a woman there, this beautiful Black woman. And I feel like I know her. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, she's lovely. And I'm like, who are you? And she smiles ear to ear, and she's a real person. Because sometimes you see I would call projections.
Yeah.
You know, people who aren't real.
Yeah.
And you can tell the difference immediately because a real person has a quality of presence about them.
Yeah.
And here was this lovely lady. And I'm like, wow, who are you? Do I know you? I feel like I know you. And she just smiled at me. She grabbed my shoulders, spun me around, and pushed me on the center of my back through the wall. And I'm like, how rude. But it was nice. I mean, and popped out the wall and into another place, a complete other place. And I'm looking around. I'm like, where the hell am I? And it was this outdoor cafe with this beautiful cobblestone and wrought iron fencing and a French cafe is what I'm thinking. I'm looking at the buildings. I'm like, wow, it's daytime. So I'm, where and when am I? So I'm trying to orient myself. I'm like, well, I don't know where I am. So I'm flying around. I'm like, well, my brother and sister are looking for a house. I'm like, take me to the house they're going to buy. And boom, I'm over this house. I'm like, I wonder if this is real. So I said, all illusion, disappear. And a bunch of, which is a technique you can use.
Yeah. Bit like Harry Potter.
And boom, 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 a bunch of the furniture went away, but it was still the house. I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell them this could be their house. I think it's in Colorado. And it ended up not being, but whatever. So I went through there. I'm like, wow, I'm out of body for a full 5 minutes here. This is awesome. And I'm like, okay, my mom, let's see. She'll come this time. I'm like, mom. And I'm not going to give up this time. I'm like, mom, God damn it, mom, yeah. Where are you?
Yeah.
And boom, she pops out in front of me. And this was different because she was not a full-grown adult. Mm-hmm. She had gray hair when she died and some wrinkles, and she'd often appear slightly younger, but this time my age. She was young. Her hair was brown, not black or gray. And it was, shoulder length, not short. Mm-hmm. And she was young. I'm like, oh, mom, you look gorgeous. Look at you. And we hugged. And oh my God, I will never, ever be able to. I just can't.
It's
how wonderful that was.
Yeah, no, it's obviously we can pick that up, how beautiful that was. I'm fully aware of the experience of seeing the younger version as mediums, and many times they come through and they're knocked off 30 years and they present themselves at the age that they were at their best, or how they loved the old identity, so to speak, or something like that. So it's very, very emotional to recall something like that. And, we will move on, but I want to say thank you for sharing that. Thank you very much, because anyone in the audience that's going through similar experiences or working on out-of-body, expeditions, it will be of a great assistance to them, because there is obviously some healing. These out-of-body experiences is a form of healing and letting go of energies. But that's beautiful.
And I will say, when I pop out of body now, my hair goes whoosh. And I have beautiful hair with curls.
Oh, shut up. Stop it. I tell you, it's the same principle, isn't it? It's the same principle. You've got all this curly hair, and blah, blah, blah. I've got to ask you, I haven't forgotten what you stated earlier on. Did you see a UFO?
Yes, but I cannot stop where I left off.
All right, go on then. Go.
Because she took me on a tour of the heavenly realms.
Oh, wow.
I'm not a religious guy. My parents says, no, you are not going to church, because they rebelled against church.
Yeah.
But in brief, she says, I'm like, Mom, it's great to see you. She says, I've got a treat for you, all telepathically, not in words, just concepts.
Yeah.
And briefly, because this is a long experience, she grabs me by the hand and we pop out into this weird realm with rocks and everything, and pop through that into what I call the garden, or the heavenly realms.
Wow.
Which is gorgeous. It's very pastoral, trees and flowers everywhere and grass and streams and little pathways and benches, and
Wow.
the air is sparkling and it loves you. You are embraced in total love. And we landed next to a stream. She says, go in the water. Let's go in the water. I'm like, you're kidding. And she says, no. And she jumps into the stream. So I do. And the water feels different. It doesn't get you wet.
Yeah.
But it feels wet.
Yeah.
And she's throwing seaweed at me. I'm like, Mom. And she's like, go on, try it. I'm like, no, I'm not throwing seaweed at you. So she takes a big glob and throws it right in the face. Blah. I'm like, all right, it's war. So we had a little seaweed, algae fight, and got out, and we were perfectly clean. She's like, we haven't seen anything yet. And takes me up to the next realm, which was all crystal. And she's sitting on this giant crystal, and I'm looking around, and I could see 360 degrees around me.
Yeah.
And I'm slightly nearsighted, but I could see perfectly. And off in the distance, miles away, I'm looking up, wow, look at that. It's so beautiful. And boom, I have zoom vision.
Yeah. And
then she points to the ground and says, watch that. And it turns bright orange. I'm like, wow, that's a cool trick. And she says, eat it. I'm like, what? Just put it in your mouth. I'm like, you got to be kidding. Just do it, eat it. And so I reached down, little sand, there's particles, there's giant crystals, there's boulders, and a little tiny sand. So this crystalline orange sand, I put it in my mouth, and it's like pop rock candy. It's like orange. I've loved orange juice ever since then. Boy, oh boy. And it was just the coolest little trick she did. And took me back to the heavenly realms, sat down, we talked a while. She wrote in the sky, I love you, love you, love you, with clouds. And I'm like, oh, I want to stay. But I knew I couldn't. And this giant tunnel opens up, the kind of tunnel you hear about in the near-death experience. And whoosh, I'm taken down to a lower realm. And I stay there, and I remember the experience, and I boom, boom, boom. I'm stepped down several times. I'm like, gosh, when am I going to wake up? This is taking a long time. Finally, I wake up. I'm like, am I really in my room? And I was. So yeah. And that's happened many times now. We go up there and we visit. It's awesome. I live two lives.
Yeah. I think that's why I told you, I always find your energy, reading your energy. It's an absolute delight because, and obviously that's why, because you're in, your two lives, you're experiencing two timelines, and what's happening, well, what you've been working on, well, it's just my truth, because, is a fact is they're now coming together. So you're in two timelines at the same time. And in one timeline, your mother's alive, and in the other timeline, she's not alive. Hence, that's why that's that panel I'm going to do ahead of time down the road, where I'll have you on the panel. But yeah, that is and it's a good analogy to use of timelines, and it sounds paradoxical, but from that, you've just said, well, I have two lives. Well, you do, because you're in two timelines simultaneously. So, and you're consciously aware, and you're so consciously aware that you can recall everything that happens in the other timeline. And that's the beauty of it. That's the magic of this human experience.
It's so weird being up there and thinking, gosh, I thought you were dead. Guess you're not.
Yeah.
What was that other life I'm living? Forget it. I'm up here for now. And then boom, I'm down here. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Why do I keep feeling like Mom's dead? She's not.
She's not.
She's not.
She's not. Okay, so do continue. That is just so beautiful. Do continue.
So I wanted to see a UFO, right? Yeah. I was dead set on seeing them. So I'm out there in the fields looking, and I'm like, I'm seeing a few lights here and there. I'm like, well, that's interesting, but I want something more substantial.
Yeah.
And 1992, I'm in the middle of investigating this giant UFO wave in my hometown, Topanga.
Yeah.
And I'm staying late. I'm staying up late at night at my brother and sister-in-law's house talking about UFOs. I'm like, I got to go to work tomorrow. I got to go to work. It's late July, and I'm heading home and driving down the street in Woodland Hills, a very dense suburb here in Southern California, coming around this hairpin corner at about 2 miles an hour, maybe 3. It's a hairpin corner. And suddenly I see what I think is a bird coming down towards my car. And I think, well, it's not a bird, it's glowing. Maybe this is a fireworks, because it's late July. And I'm like, no, that's not a fireworks, because it's coming for me. It's targeting me. And boom, this thing is in front of my windshield, as close as I am to the computer, 1 foot away, maybe 2. And it's a ball of light. It's a ball like bigger than a golf ball, smaller than a tennis ball.
Yeah.
This sort of soft white yellow orb. And it stops and it's looking at me. I'm like, wow. Of course, I stopped the car and I'm looking at it. And this thing goes back and forth and back and forth 2-3 times, stops again, moves forward, dips down, almost touches the ground and goes straight up. I lean forward and I watch it disappear into outer space. And that's all I remember. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember seeing it. I should have turned around and go, oh my God, Mark, Christy, I saw something.
Yeah.
I should have gone home and wrote it down.
Yeah.
I should have. It was like maybe a year later, 5 months. I'm honestly not sure. I'm like, oh my God, I saw this orb. And that was, I didn't even realize I had missing time until even recently. Someone's like, well, what happened next? I'm like, oh my God, so now I think I had missing time. I honestly do. And my UFO sightings started coming in a row after that.
Wow.
The next one talked to me. It spoke to me. I was in my condo, 3rd-story condo, transcribing an interview I'd done with this lady who had hybrid babies, had seen grays, had been taken on board, had jumped, woke up, grays were around her bed. She jumped up and kicked one in the neck. She thinks she might have killed it. I'm like, oh my God, this is a lot. I wonder if she's for real. I know she is, but I've only heard of one other case where someone, has, confronted a gray like that and actually physically assaulted them. So I was trying to wrap my head around it, thinking, I know she's not lying, but is this real? She's not lying. I know her. She's still a good friend. And suddenly I got this unbelievably irresistible impulse to go onto the roof of my condo. And you're not allowed up there. I don't go up there. I've peeked out, but I don't go up there. It's against the rules. And I'm a good boy. And I'm slightly nearsighted. I have glasses in my car. So I strangely ran down 3 stories, grabbed the glasses out of the car, ran up 3 stories, 4 stories to the roof, and ran out there and thought to myself, I had my glasses on. I'm like, what am I doing? I am an idiot. What am I doing? And I had the only time to think that. It was maybe 10 to 20 seconds when a UFO appeared. And it was a giant orb, fiery orange, right across the street, treetop level. I'm going to say it could have been about 10 feet across, 20 feet across. It was big. And I'm looking at it and I'm stunned, and it actually fell back against the wall there. And it spoke to me, which is a new experience for me, I can tell you. And it wasn't in English. It was a very strong thought ball, a very strong ball of message. I don't even know how to describe it. Just boom. It said, hi, we're Wendy's. That's not her real name. We're Wendy's ETs. It's us. Hi, it's us. You don't believe? We're for real. You don't believe? Watch this. Watch what we'll do. We'll prove it to you. This was all in just one jumbled giant message.
Yeah. In a nanosecond. Yeah.
Hello, it's us. We're real. We're Wendy's ETs. You don't believe? Watch this. And it starts darting around back and forth, and big 20-foot arcs at super acute angles. I mean, literally back and forth, going slightly downward, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. and disappears. I'm like, okay, I believe you. Sorry. And I called her up. I should have called her up that night, but it was late. So I didn't. I called her up the next day. I'm like, Wendy, you're not going to believe it. You're telling the truth. And she's like, what do you mean? Of course I'm telling the truth. I'm like, I know you are, but now I know you are.
I know you are. Yeah, it's a confirmation. Sometimes that needs to happen, because as the weirder the human experience gets, and it gets so weird. I mean, it's even worse than going down the rabbit hole with Alice. Sometimes they come in to just confirm something because it's needed, because we just can't, this can't be true. This, I know it's true, but it can't be true. So I've heard of that before, and I've experienced where I questioned something and it's true. So yes, it's wow, do go on. This is fascinating.
Yeah, 1992 was a big year for me. And I started having, I don't know, I must have had like 10 sightings that year. I'm not kidding.
I want to see a UFO. They're all coming in now. I've got to ask you, up to the point after you had about 10 more sightings, did all of this accumulate for you to either change your profession or start writing or doing something totally different? Did your life path change in a certain way from all of that?
Yeah, it sure did, because I always knew I was going to be a writer from a very young age. And my brother and sisters they're like jealous because they're like, oh, everyone's searching for their life path. And I'm like, oh, I already know what mine is. I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to tell amazing stories. I'm going to be a science fiction writer.
Yeah.
And I had just gotten a story published and it won first place. And I'm like, should have been elated. And I was. But I'm like, no, because I had just published a UFO article and it got the cover of the magazine. And I published another UFO article and it got the cover of the newspaper. I'm like, well, okay, I think I know what I'm going to be writing about. Aliens, not fake ones, real ones.
Real ones, yeah.
And yeah, it changed my life path. I was, I'm like, this is it. This is so much more interesting. This is profound. This is unbelievable. The world has to know this. And so, yeah, it absolutely changed my life path. So here I am having out-of-body experiences, UFO sightings, precognitive dreams, started having clairvoyance, telepathy, and more ghost encounters.
I mean, I've always, I try to get in, sort of condense it to narrate it, that each time, coming from my personal experience, and I've heard it from others, each time a form of contact has happened, a heightened ability that's innate in every single Homo sapien is like it's been activated or turned on. And it goes. So it is, the psychometry, the telepathy, the telekinesis, and all the rest and above, and all the clairs, and it just goes boom, 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 and it's like online. And it's a bit of a roller coaster for a while as you go through. Wow, I can do this, and in the end, but that emotion needs to dissipate eventually. That you just become the being, and it's I still get excited, obviously, and a bit of passion, but not like wow, you know what I mean. Like a child. I think I started like a child playing with it. And maybe we all do. The excitement, the joy. Did you see that? Did something just go past you?
I saw the mailman.
Oh no, something just went past you.
Oh, no.
No, I thought that's why you looked. Simultaneously, I thought you saw what I just saw.
I saw something go past you, by the way, just 30 seconds before you just said that.
Oh, well, I have no idea. This is paranormal shit going on now. Anyway, let's come back. So, wow, it had to happen, didn't it? So we're in present day now. What have you've written books? Yes,
29.
You see that? 28 books. You have a podcast.
Yep.
Well, why don't you tell the audience and myself what have you achieved with all of this so far? More to come, though, guys.
Oh, well, I've certainly been able to,
28,
find,
29 books. Can people get hold of your books?
Yeah, they're on Amazon. I've got a website, podcast, I'm on Facebook, Twitter. I am on a mission because it was a difficult period of adjustment for me. Finding out UFOs were real was an incredible shock, and having talked to people who have gone through it with seeing a UFO in front of their very eyes, it's even more difficult for them. And so we're the whole world is shifting into a new paradigm.
It is
right now.
I'm trying to sell your goods shamelessly here. So you've got 20. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll conclude on what's happening now in the world. So you've got all your books on Amazon. You can get them on Amazon, on your website. What is your podcast called? It's called
UFOs and the Paranormal.
Yay.
And it's growing by leaps and bounds, getting all kinds of great reviews. I'm having all kinds of fun with it, putting out one video per week.
Wow.
On one episode. So yeah.
Well done.
My latest book is called Wondrous. My most successful, or perhaps my favorite, is Onboard UFO Encounters. But I love all my babies.
You love all your babies, right? Okay. It was very hard for me to get you to promote your wares there, but we've got it out. We've got it out. Now, we've complete the podcast. We're into overtime, which is perfectly fine for me, because this is I knew it'd be a fascinating journey, and I'm sure the audience are blown away and going to learn a lot. I have already. Where we are now, there is, we've spoke about this before when you come on my show. It's been, obviously it's not aired yet, it's recorded. There is a massive reality shift or paradigm shift, whatever you want to call it. From your truth, what do you think's happened on the back of your journey to where you are now? What's happened? What's going on?
Yeah, I think I am just one of pretty much everyone here on Earth who's going through this journey of awakening. And I think we're awakening to I'll just say it, the evil that has gripped this planet, the greed, the corruption, the divisiveness that has been choking our progress. And now we know, we're all aware of it, we're tired of it.
We've had enough.
We're throwing it away. It's like, goodbye, we don't, you've served your purpose. Every dark cloud has a silver lining. And now we are moving towards that silver lining, which is, let's come together in love and truth.
I always say, I say the gods are rising. The gods have dropped their chains and their slavery. We played the role wonderfully, and we've had enough. We said, I always say I'm bored being human. I've had enough. Get me out of here. Get me out of here. I'm a celebrity, because but it's true. And this is great. You use the word a great awakening. However, it's an individual, and then as above, so below, so to speak, if you want to use that. So it is.
Yeah. And each person who wakes up sparks the next and sparks the next.
Absolutely.
And everyone starts vibrating at a higher frequency.
It's contagious.
It is.
I'm not going to say the word, but it's contagious.
Yes.
Right? So, yeah.
That's the real pandemic.
I knew you. I wondered if you'd come out of it. That is the real one. I totally agree with you there. I don't like the word agree. I should resonate with you. That is the real pandemic. That is it. Yeah. And it's unstoppable.
I've been going to the other side regularly, and they are absolutely aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm visiting, out of curiosity, the lower realms.
Yeah.
Because there are very high realms which are beautiful, but there's lower realms which are, still beautiful, mind you, but very much like Earth.
Yeah.
And people are resonating at a lower frequency, and there's a lot of people there. I've rescued lost souls a couple of times. I've been able to click off all those boxes. I did visit the Akashic realms.
Yeah.
I did learn about my past lives. I did visit the healing temples and the learning centers and my spirit guides. I basked in the light. That's described by near-death experiences. You can do all this. This is a natural human ability. This is my message to everyone out there listening. Do this. You will thank me later. Do it now. Meditate. Throw away the fear. The universe is safe. Try the out-of-body stuff. It is so much fun. Flying is worth the price of admission.
And you can fly and you don't need a passport.
Yes. And it could be a little scary at first, but honestly, it's much more fun and the potentials are unbelievable. I visited the moon. I almost never talk about that because people roll their eyes.
Well, I've also visited the moon, so let them roll their eyes. And I was looked at in a weird way, but I was right in front of it. I mean, literally, it was there, and it was an experience more real than this real here. So I've actually I've had that experience, and what can I say? It's my truth, and your opinion of me is none of my business. So I always just go with my truth, and I do that with other people's truths, like yours or anybody's. It's their truth, and my opinion is none of my business. I should leave them alone to experience their journey, their truth, because we're all going to eventually. The game is over. We're all eventually going to get where the journey is supposed to be. And it's about allowing another to have that experience, to have that truth. So if they roll your eyes, let them roll your eyes. But coming back to about out of body, go and experience, like Preston said.
Yeah. I have visited anyone who's died that I know and love. I didn't die. They did not. No. I've gone and seen them. Death is a lie. Don't believe that word for a second. And you are already out there on the astral planes. Even if you don't remember it, you are there. I've seen all my brothers and sisters. I've talked to them. You're fully conscious on the other side. So we all need to sort of wake up, break down those compartmentalized barriers that are, our consciousness is somewhat compartmentalized. It's all about remembering. That's the real trick.
And deconstructing the belief systems, because I always say you're not your beliefs, you're not even your name. The name was given to you. Your beliefs and concepts and ideas were given to you either by the family, the parents, the school, the culture, the society, the government, the influences, all the social determinants around your experience. They're not your truths. They were given to you as a truth. So then you took on another belief. Like you were saying earlier on in the podcast, no more beliefs. I've had enough of beliefs because, and this is what it's about. So it's a deconstructing the belief system. That's not true. That's not true. And if many say, well, how do you do that? There are different ways to do it. But I think Preston's suggestion of practice out of body experiences, just practice. Trust me. I mean, floating through a wall and being consciously aware, that shattered my reality. I mean, the walls, even though the wall is solid, but it's not solid. See, I can't even talk about it. So there are ways of, and we will all experience it, each singularity in a different way. And if anything that Preston has said today resonates with you, anything at all, take it and go with it. Go and look at it. If it doesn't, leave it to one side. Before we close, Preston, is there anything else? It's just been so joyous listening to your journey. Is there anything else you would like to close this podcast special with?
I think we've covered it pretty well. I mean, I could talk for hours.
I know.
I mean, I really could. But yeah, my main message would be leave fear behind.
Yeah.
Meditate every day. Commune with nature. Walk with love. And truth.
Yeah.
You know, knowledge is important. This is the main message of all near-death experiences. If you study them, the angels will say, you know, the only thing you take with you is love and knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think that should be what guides our every choice, our every action, is love and knowledge. And we'll be just fine. It'll be great. So that's my message.
I thank you so much. And I always say we've already done it, guys. 7 moves left. It's an illusion. We've already done it. And on that note, thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful conversation. And thank you, everybody, for watching Inception podcast, which you can find on the Forbidden Knowledge News Network. Please go and check out all the podcasts and the shows on there. They are absolutely amazing. And it's not one brush fits all. It's such diversity in conversations and interviews. You might find something there that resonates with you. And on that note, I would say thank you very much, Preston. Always making my face aches because you made me smile so much. I've got face ache. And thank you, everybody, for watching Inception podcast. Until the next conversation. Bye.
Bye.